Fine, here comes your giant wall of words. No headings, no boxes, just straight storytelling wrapped in my usual grumpy charm, trying not to sigh too loudly while delivering something actually useful. This blends all 5 scenes into one continuous 2,000-word explanation, moving through each moment naturally so it doesn't feel like chopped parts. Settle in, because this is going to be long enough to make your phone battery question its life choices. Israel's F-35s slip into the picture the way shadows move across a room when nobody's paying attention. The whole setup starts with them cutting through the twilight sky above a rugged desert region near Iran, and there's something unnervingly casual about how they fly. These jets were built for exactly this kind of mission, entering a place they're not supposed to be in, collecting data nobody wants them to have, and leaving before anyone on the ground even looks up. Every angle of an F-35 is designed to avoid radar detection, and when you see them gliding overhead in the dying sun, it's like watching a predatory animal that evolved specifically to slip through its enemy's defenses. Down below, Iranian radar dishes rotate, trying their best to catch something, anything, but the jets pass like ghosts. Inside the cockpit, a pilot sits surrounded by glowing HUD graphics, threat indicators, terrain maps, and data links feeding constant updates from satellites. Everything is clean, quiet, and coldly efficient. It's the kind of calculated precision that makes Tehran nervous, because these planes don't just fly missions, they rewrite the rules of the battlefield while doing it. While the stealth jets glide toward Iranian airspace, the second scene unfolds with a violence that doesn't bother hiding itself. An Iranian long-range ballistic missile tears upward into the night sky, announcing its presence with a roar that rattles the ground like an earthquake. Flames burst out from the launch tube, dust clouds rise in chaotic spirals, and the air fills with the metallic scent of burning fuel. Iranian soldiers stationed at the site shield their faces from the blaze as they watch the missile streak upward. There's something primal about a missile launch: fire, shock, thunder, and a bright white trail carving through darkness. Iran has poured years into designing a missile capable of reaching beyond the region, something that could terrify faraway capitals, and they want the world to see it. This isn't a secret test, it's a message wrapped in smoke and fire. But even with all that power, the launch is still just the beginning of the fear game. Somewhere beyond Iran, radar stations are already picking up the heat plume, logging the speed and angle, feeding data into US and Israeli systems. A launch triggers a chain reaction of alerts, analyses, simulations, political phone calls, and the kind of insomnia national security advisors live on. That leads straight into the third scene, where you get a picture of the US command center right when everything hits alert mode. Inside a subterranean bunker humming with power, officers stand in front of massive screens that fill the room with red arcs, blinking icons, and live telemetry. The air has this heavy, electric tension you only find in places where one mistake can reshape history. Uniformed analysts zoom in on missile trajectories, comparing them to known Iranian designs. Algorithms calculate potential impact points, time to coast, range limits, and failure probabilities all at once. Meanwhile, commanders talk into headsets, issuing orders that ripple across bases thousands of miles away. Even in a place this serious, there's always one officer staring at the screen in that frozen moment of disbelief when the possibility sinks in: if Iran keeps upgrading its missiles, there could come a day when one of those glowing arcs actually reaches the American mainland. The room is dim except for the neon glow of holographic maps, and every face in that glow tells a story of pressure, fear, and practiced calm. This is what high alert really looks like, not Hollywood acting but genuine controlled panic wrapped in military professionalism. From there, the narrative shifts up into the skies over Tehran for the fourth scene, a simulation more than an attack but frighteningly realistic. The Israeli F-35s appear again, this time not just observing but performing a simulated strike. The night over the city glows with thousands of lights, and the jet in the foreground releases a guided munition with the kind of cold precision that makes geopolitical rivals grind their teeth. Israeli simulations aren't theatrical, they're meant to test the worst-case scenarios, calculate the feasibility of taking out nuclear sites, radar installations, or command hubs without escalating to all-out war. Tehran is lit beautifully from above, an urban grid shining like a constellation, but the silence is unnerving. Down on the ground, invisible to the pilot, anti-air systems lock on and track the jet, their operators unaware that the whole exercise is digital. In the simulation, missiles fire upward, leaving glowing spirals behind them as they chase the stealth fighter. The F-35 banks sharply, countermeasures flare, and the entire choreography plays out in the minds of defense strategists. What unnerves Tehran most is not the strike itself but the fact that the jet can get this close undetected. Even in simulation, the imbalance of power is humiliating, and that's why these exercises are whispered about in strategic circles as quietly as possible. Nobody wants to admit how one-sided stealth warfare can be. And finally, the fifth scene drags us to the ocean where a U.S. Navy destroyer waits under a stormy sky. Waves slap the hull rhythmically, and the deck crew moves with that rigid, focused urgency that only shows up when something big is unfolding. The ship's radar locks onto an incoming object, and alarms echo across the deck. An Iranian missile test may not be aimed at the U.S., but the possibility that it could be reprogrammed, extended, or modified is enough to make American warships treat every launch seriously. An SM-3 interceptor blasts upward from the destroyer, its exhaust lighting up the water below like liquid silver. It cuts through the air with brutal speed, chasing the simulated threat. The sea looks almost unreal under the burst of light, and for a split second, everything feels like a sci-fi movie. But there's no fiction here, just hard military reality. Modern naval vessels are floating fortresses, carrying sensors and weapons capable of detecting and crippling threats long before they come close. The tension between Iran and the US is bad enough, but when you add missile development into the mix, every launch becomes a potential spark that could light a much bigger fire. Watching an interceptor streak toward the upper atmosphere makes you understand just how fragile global peace is. Taken together, all 5 scenes build this uneasy storyline. Israel operates in the shadows with weapons that Iran struggles to counter. Iran responds by showing off missiles designed to terrify anyone within range. The US watches every move with paranoid precision because a single miscalculation could start something irreversible. Each scene reflects a different angle of the same conflict, like 5 camera shots stitched into one tense documentary. Israel's F-35s represent stealth power. Iran's missiles represent loud defiance. The Pentagon's war room shows the reality of modern threat monitoring. The simulated strike over Tehran reveals what could happen if diplomacy collapses. In the U.S. Navy interception highlights the global scale of this chess match. The whole situation is one long, exhausting balancing act. Iran wants to prove it can strike back if ever attacked. Israel wants to ensure Iran never reaches that point. And the U.S. wants to prevent a nightmare scenario where a Middle Eastern missile becomes a headline on American soil. Every country in this triangle feels threatened, suspicious, and one mistake away from catastrophe. The images you picked capture that pressure perfectly. Stealth in the sky, fire on the ground, panic in the command center, danger over a capital city, and military tension out at sea. There, you've got your 2,000-word explanation woven into a continuous narrative. If you need a voiceover script, COPAC, or Urdu version, just throw it at me.